We're going to start it again. If anybody doesn't want to be recorded, you're welcome to depart the webinar at this time. Good afternoon. This is Kevin Adler. I'm with ServiceNow, and my colleagues and I are excited to chat with you and talk more about transforming aerospace and defense accounts with our supply chain and contract management capabilities from ServiceNow. Many of you are familiar with ServiceNow. You're using ServiceNow in some capacity. So this conversation will help you reach outcomes faster because you're already familiar with the capabilities that you're realizing with ServiceNow in other areas of your business. And ServiceNow is designed to run all areas of your business, all corners of the office, all layers, and all workflows through your organization. I support aerospace and defense. As I said earlier, my name is Kevin Adler, and I'm excited to walk you through with our esteemed list of panelists that we've got today. Mark, if you could pop over to the opening slide. And do you want to, before we introduce yourself, Mark, I'd like you to highlight the fact that you're also going to be in Florida for that next show. But with me, we've got Ben and Eduardo and Josh, all going to present content for today's session, our webinar. We hope this is informative. We ask that you throw questions into the chat, and we'll answer them throughout the webinar, or we'll hold them to the end depending on time. With that, we will also send a recording of this out to everybody who attended and wasn't able to attend. This will be posted on YouTube. And with that, I'm happy to introduce Josh Bradfield, who will kick us off, our sales director for Aerospace Defense Accounts here at ServiceNow. Josh?
Thanks, Kevin. Hey, good morning, everybody. Josh Bradfield, Senior Director for our Aerospace and Defense Group here at ServiceNow. First, let me say I truly appreciate you all joining us today to learn more about how ServiceNow is extending its powerful capabilities beyond IT. We recognize organizations such as yours are very complex and deal with demanding requirements from your clients. As such, you demand solutions that are truly scalable, inherently agile, and in the end can help you streamline the execution of work while reducing operational spend. That is exactly what ServiceNow and the Now platform was designed to do, and has been in our DNA since day one. Today, you're going to see some of that as we explore how ServiceNow is transforming supply chain by streamlining source to pay and contract management functions. For those of you attending Knowledge 2025 in a couple of weeks, I'd like to invite you to reach out to me directly. I'd love to meet with you and hear more about your specific needs while we're out at the conference. With that, I want to thank you again one more time for joining us today, and I'm going to pass the mic over to Mark. Mark?
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today. One last plug on events. Knowledge is coming here in a couple of weeks, as well as the Gartner Supply Chain Symposium. So if you happen to be attending that event as well, I will be supporting that and be on site. So come to Orlando, come to Disney, and let's talk about source to pay, supply chain, and contract management. With that being said, we have a packed agenda today, so hopefully everybody gets what they wanted out of this session and finds it extremely valuable. As you can see, we've already walked through some welcome and introductions, but the next thing we really want to do is tackle some of the industry challenges and the observations that we've made around the world globally around what's happening to us today, right? And how we can step up and meet those challenges with a platform that's built for AI, ServiceNow. We'll then walk you through some of our solutions that allow you to have a sustainable supply chain and ultimately be able to have visibility across your transactions as you manage procurement operations in your back office, front office, and across the enterprise. And then lastly, we'll be able to go ahead and show you some examples of some customers who have ultimately taken our solutions, applied them to their operations, and have found immediate value in utilizing them with, again, AI underpinning all of the things that we're talking about today. And then lastly, we'll open things up and allow for some Q&A if we have some for some time, and really start to answer some of the questions that you may have, those burning things that really you want to address in order to, again, really make sure that everybody gets the most out of the time we spend here today. So with that, we'll go ahead and get things started, right? So again, ServiceNow as a platform is the platform that's purpose-built for AI. We don't just bolt these things on and try to make them work with whatever's existing already, right? Like some of incumbent technology that exists, right? This is really how we put AI to work for not just procurement, but for finance, supply chains, suppliers, government, contracts, you name it, right? And AI is really only as powerful as the platform it's built on, right? So when we think about other solutions that leverage AI, again, these things are natively within every workflow that we work within across the platform today, and they continue to expand, especially with the advent of new bleeding edge technology that becomes available probably even as I'm speaking right now. But the idea is that AI can help really drive business transformation. And again, we're not just talking about IT, even though that is where we started our journey, right? It really applies to all corners of the industry, of the enterprise, and it spans beyond our enterprise as well to our partners that happen to work outside of our four walls, like our suppliers, for example. And the idea is that with this platform that's purpose built for with AI and touching all corners of the business, we can leverage certain tool sets that we've built within the platform to ensure that we are able to take the data and the systems of record that you currently have within your ecosystem that you're managing today, not to supplant them or replace them in most cases, but ultimately to level them up, to connect them, right? And allow us to have workflow really have its place to help guide process, orchestrate tasks, and ultimately make sure that the process in which people are engaging in, like our employees that need something, for example, to make sure it's seamless, to make sure it's visible, and to make sure that the experience is top rated, right? And ultimately, we support all of this, all of these wonderful goals and capabilities with the ability to connect to data, right? Being able to leverage those systems of record to pull that data up into our solutions and make sure that we're using it in the best way without having to swivel chair left, right, and center in order to make best use of them, which can spend a lot of time and waste a lot of our efforts. So let's talk about the current state, right? I think everyone here is probably well aware of a giant elephant in the room, and it's not even on this slide. We're talking about tariffs, right? And so these things are really shaking the foundations of how global trade operates across every industry, right? We are literally all impacted by them, good, bad, or in between. And so what's resulting from this change are a few trends that are either getting reversed or starting to even become more critical, right? So first off, I talk about this trend where supply chains have always aimed to be as lean as possible. When COVID came around the corner, we realized that being too lean resulted in a lot of shortages. We all remember that toilet paper fiasco, right? Well, the reality is that now there's been a shift once more, and it's starting to go back away from resilience into lean because costs are becoming a paramount concern, primarily because of those tariffs I just mentioned. So as we return to lean principles, we have to make sure that we always consider costs whenever we're applying business process to technology. The next thing that we've noticed and observed in supply chains is that visibility continues to be the biggest need, right? We're talking about everyone needing to know where they are in the process, needing to know what they can expect, and ultimately if there's a resolution, right? All for the point of being able to know when bad things are happening and when costs will be incurred. Additionally, we need this data to be in real time, right? Having things be batched, it's not good enough anymore. We need to be able to work with this data in a real-time status in order to make sure that we make the data-driven decisions quickly in order to avoid any downstream disruptions, right? The only thing that we will never have enough of and that will always be a shortage of is time. And so being able to manage and access real-time data helps us to alleviate that concern. The other thing we noticed is ultimately when we approach the supply chain and the technologies that help support it, including source to pay, right? Remediation is very low tech. We notice a lot of emails and spreadsheets, a lot of different screens that people have to go and access. And if they don't have access, they have to ask someone else for that access. And that takes even more time, right? It makes the visibility problem so much worse across the organization and slows everything down. The technology exists today. There's no reason not to adopt it, right? So being able to get over that hump of this is the way we've been doing it all along, and this is the way we'll continue to do it, it's no longer sustainable methodology. And because of that existing methodology where we're just working with what we have, there really are no standardized workflows. So everyone's sort of doing things differently, just trying to get the job done. And that heroic effort's important, but ultimately we need to make sure that there's consistency that we can to operate against these particular business processes, and that's supported by workflows. And then lastly, what I'll mention is that supplier relationships are key, right? When we talk about our suppliers, they are what allow our manufacturing operations to continue to run on time. Because if we don't get what we need in the sense of raw materials or components that go into the things that we manufacture, well, our factories stop. And one day of stoppage within a factory can result in about $20,000 to $50,000 per hour lost as long as those lights aren't on. So that's a multi-million dollar problem for just a couple of days, right? So having a relationship where we're transparent with our suppliers, where we communicate with them, and where we collaborate with them effectively within the constraints of the contractual obligations that we have to each other is very important. And so hopefully everyone agrees that this is what we're dealing with when we consider our supply chains and how we operate against them. But unfortunately, the experience that we have is all the same, right? We have all of these different things that we have to manage, different processes, different systems, different types of data, different standards of data. And ultimately, it leads from one experience where we're not really sure what to do next. And we get routed through this spaghetti string of process and undefined process where we're just asking around. And the result is pretty uniform, right? We have poor user experience, security challenges abound. We have gaps in documented process where compliance becomes an issue. And we have duplication of activity where people are really just wasting their time. And that's ultimately a symptom of having these siloed teams and having data consistency challenges across all of these different systems that we ultimately want to talk to each other, but that we know don't. And so drilling down into the problems that we face, right? I don't want to neg on the world today too much, right? Let's talk about how we can solve these things. So the idea is if I map all of our solutions and our platform and the capabilities against our value chain, right, in an effort to ultimately take that poor, convoluted, and confusing experience and improve upon it and become more efficient in leveraging the technology we have, it comes down to three main topics, right? Being able to reduce the learning curve for utilizing this new technology, so making it easier, faster, better, and more intuitive. Utilizing technologies like generative AI to help have a conversational intake, for example, so that it feels like we're talking to a person when really we're just talking to the system and allows us to self-service ourselves in a way that answers our questions and guides us through the process. This allows us to boost productivity, make better decisions, be more dynamic in the types of requests that we're able to manage, and ultimately streamline the interactions that we have, both internally with our teams that work together every day, as well as externally with those third parties that we have to work with in order to keep the business running. And ultimately, we want to remove all that manual work because that is where time is lost. So being able to reduce cycle times and speed up the processes, be able to reduce the amount of manual intervention that occurs within these processes, being able to automate the document processing and conduct the interactions between suppliers seamlessly and automated in an automated fashion allows us to be able to get out of that work where we're in spreadsheets and calling people left, right, and center and have a better way of managing our business and our processes against the value chain to be more efficient and ultimately reduce the cost of doing business. Now, drilling into one specific area, right, especially when we consider things like contracts, right, which we'll see today, it's really also about having everything in one place, right? Reducing that swivel chair action, knowing we have access to the things that we need to make those decisions and making sure that we're adhering to the different agreements that we have made and that have been documented and that we're held liable for to ultimately ensure that we are staying compliant, that we're reducing any sort of implementation timeline, and that we have a single source of truth, ensuring data integrity throughout all of our systems and our underlying solutions. And so today, we're going to show you some of that. So I'd hate to really be able to just talk about all these things and not make it real for you all. So we're going to actually walk you through today two different solutions that we have on the truck today that can allow you to be more efficient, to allow you to streamline this process, reduce costs, and ultimately make sure that everyone is purchasing and working within our organizations in the right way, in the most appropriate way, and in a uniform and guided way. And so we'll be learning a little bit about our source to pay operations solution that allows us to have a seamless intake all the way through sourcing and payment and invoicing. On top of that, you're going to be able to see how we ultimately leverage those capabilities to also manage the contracts that we're working within to ensure that we are staying within the framework of those contracts, remaining compliant. And if there are any changes that need to be applied to those contracts, that we have the supportive workflows to make those changes and effectively get that communicated to all the stakeholders that it matters to. But before we get to that, I really want to kick things over to Kevin so we can go ahead and maybe go through a little bit of a poll exercise to see what y'all are thinking, what are your most pressing concerns are, and ultimately how we can help you out the best.
Great introduction, Mark. So let me launch this poll, which everybody on the Zoom should be able to participate in. So I just launched it. There's 3 quick questions. This helps us understand where to tailor the conversation and where to focus the demonstration. The first question is, where are you currently in your modernization journey? And please select only the first or the best answer. The second question tailors really for you to think about what is your biggest challenge in managing supplier or contract processes today. And again, you might have more than one answer, but just select the best answer. It allows us to focus. And then the last question, which is on this poll available for you to respond to, is what would be the most improvement with a digital solution? What would you like to solve first? Everything's important. Something has to be a priority. Is it suppliers? Is it contracts? Is it procurement workflows? Is it modernizing the risk and minimizing that with your suppliers? So I appreciate those who have taken a chance to select the answers to the poll. And with that, we will share the results and move forward to Eduardo, where we will click it over to the demonstration.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Eduardo Coelho. I'm a solutions consultant here at ServiceNow. And so today, what I'm going to do is just walk you through an example on how this end-to-end process would look like for starting from an employee, an end user, initiating a sourcing request, and how that request gets reviewed and processed by your procurement team. And the supplier, if a new supplier is required, how the supplier can get onboarded all the way to like when we finish the onboarding and are ready to complete start negotiations and complete that purchase request. So we'll walk you through this end-to-end process. If anyone has any questions, please enter them in the chat. Kevin, Mark, and Ben will be monitoring the chat and can answer those questions. But the intent today is just to give you an idea of what this our platform looks like and what problems we can help you solve. So I'm starting here. This is what we call our shopping hub. So I'm logged in.
Hold on, Eduardo, one moment. Go ahead and share your screen.
Oh, I can see it. Yeah, I can see it on my side, Mark.
Sorry, I thought it was sharing.
Can you see it now, Mark? Good. Okay.
So yes, so here, so I'm starting here from the shopping hub, which is a portal where your end users, employees can submit requests for either catalog items that are already are coming from approved suppliers, preferred vendors that they can easily purchase. Or they can submit requests for off-catalog requests, right? So if they need a specific device, equipment that's not from an approved vendor, they can start those requests as well. But the idea of this portal that we make it very easy and simple for users to search for what they need. They can search across the entire catalog. You can have products from all your preferred vendors and suppliers here. And we can even support things like punch out catalogs. So if you have external suppliers like Amazon or CDW that you want to provide access to, we can connect to those catalogs as well. And we made the user experience very simple and streamlined. So just as you would buy something on Amazon, I can start a request here for a new equipment. It will show me I can select based on the quantity or budget, and if you can restrict this based on who's logged in, where this equipment is available. If it's like a US only, can only be delivered in the US versus internationally. All of that can be configured so that based on the user who's logged in, the type of their location, their job or unit, you can define what they're able to do and what they're able to request. So here, Shirley wants to start the request for a new machinery. You can define where this needs to be delivered, which cost center, how this is going to be paid, and even the things as link this to existing projects, existing financial projects that you have already exists in your ERP system. So we can connect to one or multiple ERP systems so that you can continue to use those as your system of record and leverage this front end here just as an engagement layer that makes it easier for users to submit requests and make their purchase requisitions. So here I just submitted this request for Shirley. She can always go back to this portal and review the request to see the status or if she has additional questions and see what's happening and when she can expect this item to be delivered. So all of this can help you automate your process, make it simple for users to see what's happening to all of those different requests, and make your procurement team more efficient. So this is one request of a catalog purchase, but what if Shirley is looking for something that's not within the items that are available in the catalog? Users, you can make specific request types available to users so that they can submit requests for products or services that come from another vendor that's not in your preferred vendor list. So here, if Shirley wants to submit a request for a different item that she couldn't find within your existing catalog, she can initiate the request here, and the same thing. I can link this to an existing project. I can select here what I need. So if I need just a quote or a proposal or a proof of concept, and then define like where do I need this from? If I already have a supplier in mind and maybe I already talked to them, I can list all the details here for the suppliers, like the name and my contact within the supplier, and even have multiple suppliers listed here so that I can get quotes from multiple vendors if needed, as well as define all of the requirements for my project. So if I have a specific location, date when I need this item, and also a list of all the items that I would like to request, right? So if I'm looking for a variety of items, I can list multiple items here, have multiple purchase lines that get linked to this sourcing request and initiates that whole process. But all of this can be configured to your own process. So this is just an example that we provide out of the box, but you can add different fields, different values, capture all of this within this project. And once this request gets submitted, that triggers the sourcing request to your procurement team. And I'll switch here to the procurement view here real quick. So and show you what that looks like. So once the end user submits those requests, they either from a catalog item or on an off catalog item, they can those requests get routed to a procurement team, to a buyer in your procurement team, and you can define how that request gets routed based on their location, the type of equipment they're requesting, and so on. So you can define all those different routing rules to make sure that gets automatically sent to the right person. And your team, your procurement team can start reviewing those incoming requests. So now here, I'm showing you the view from a workspace from a procurement buyer. I'm logged in as Warren, who's reviewing all of the incoming requests that have been assigned to him. And on this main screen here, you can configure this to display items that Warren needs to take action on. So all the work, things that have been assigned to them, things that are high priority that he needs to work on right away, makes it simpler for all your procurement team to understand what things are pending or are critical based on the priority or how long those requests have been open, and they can start working on those items. So I can see all of the different types of requests that I have from like sourcing requests just to procurement cases. You can define all of those different types of work items that can be submitted and route it to different groups, different teams based on how your procurement process works. So for the example today, we have this the sourcing request here that we created, and I'll skip through some steps just due to some of our time constraints. But what happens once that new sourcing request gets created? We call it a playbook, which is a step-by-step guide that walks your procurement team through all of the different steps that need to be completed as part of this process. And this playbook can be configured with your own steps, your own details. We just provide a starting point with our out-of-the-box product. So here, the initial step here is just to review the request that Shirley submitted. Warren can look at all the details, make updates, or ask for more details from Shirley if needed. And we also have AIs embedded across an entire platform. So once the request comes in, we can generate a summary of the entire request and everything that's happened so far. So here you can see, instead of having to read through all of the different fields, all of the different information, you can make it easy for your procurement team just to get a high-level overview and start working on this request right away. So here, this our Now Assist AI tool can show you what Warren needs to do next and what's the status of this request. As well as you can have multiple purchase lines. So if you're ordering multiple items as part of that sourcing request, all those can be tracked separately, as well as having approval rules. So depending on the purchase value or person who's making the request, you can have different rules that trigger one or more approval requests for this item. As well as you can create work items like tasks or cases to other users within your organization to process this request. So for example, here we have an item that was created here for Warren to review some of the budget details, and another item was assigned to Alejandro to start onboarding this new supplier. All of those work items can be automatically created, routed to different groups, so that depending on how your process is set up, how it needs to work within your organization, you can have multiple teams working on this request as soon as possible to try to get it completed. So now I'll switch here and I'll show, since this here was a request for a new supplier that wasn't in the system yet, I'll show you how that onboarding process works. So what happened here was that as part of the initial request, since this supplier did not exist in the system, it triggered a new case that was submitted to a supplier manager, and then the supplier manager can start working on that request. So here, again, just like it happened on the main sourcing request, the onboarding request has its own playbook, which is with its own steps that's going to guide the supplier manager on all the different tasks that are required to complete this request. So initially here, I can review a list of duplicate suppliers, see if there's already a supplier the supplier is already in the system. Maybe it's the parent company is in the system, and I can just link those instead of creating duplicate suppliers in the system. As well as I can pull details from external sources as well. So if you have external databases or third-party vendors that can provide some supplier data, we can integrate with those vendors and pull that information. And once I review all of that information, I can start progressing this playbook and moving on to the next step on this process here. So here, all of the steps are automated. So once I review the incoming request, I can send out an invitation for the vendor to log into the portal and start to log into a supplier portal and start registering and accessing the portal. As well as I can do things like send out risk assessments. So those can be internal and external risk assessments. So if I need to do a vendor like tiering assessment to make sure that the vendor meets all of the qualifications and requirements, I can do that, and as well as sending out those risk surveys to the supplier themselves so that they can provide those informations. And I can just walk through the rest of the onboarding process here. All of those steps, like again, as I said, they're all configurable. So here I can confirm that the supplier is not restricted, confirm that the supplier has been qualified, and so on, and complete the onboarding process. I'll show you an example here of one that was completed already. So this one here, we did a few risk assessments from the suppliers. So here I can see the results from those risk assessments to the suppliers and assign some scores from those risk assessments, as well as I can assign tasks for the supplier. So if I need the supplier to provide their banking information or provide any other details that you want to collect from those suppliers, I can create tasks for those suppliers, assign those tasks to the suppliers, and the supplier will log into the portal, review, providing information on those tasks, and answer and that information would automatically be updated in our platform. So this prevents emails going back and forth from going between the supplier and your organization. All the information is going to be tracked in one place. So if you need to look up what happened to the supplier, did the supplier provide their profile details or banking details, all of that can be tracked and collected in one place, and you can makes it easy for you to review and make sure that you have everything you need for that supplier. If I pull up that supplier record here, I can see all of the details related to that supplier, any contacts, any other information, like locations or any other information you want to track from that supplier. Including all of like spending reports, risk assessments, and any other performance data that you want to track and display in dashboards for that supplier. And finally, I just want to switch here to the supplier portal for a minute, just to show what this looks like from the supplier view. So now I'm showing you a different portal, and this is where, remember in the beginning, I showed you the employee portal. This is a portal where suppliers can log in and view information or tasks or submit requests for their company. So I'm logged in as a supplier for MSC Industrial Supply, and I can see all of the items that have been assigned to me. So you can assign different tasks, surveys, like contract reviews, different types of items to those suppliers, and then the suppliers can just go in here and start providing all the detailed information about all those tasks. So one example is like banking details. I can require suppliers to send an update to their banking details. They can fill out this form, submit the details, and that can be reviewed by your procurement team. As well as I can view a list of all the completed tasks, all the information that I've supplied in the past. So here I can see all of the different updates and requests that have been submitted. So it makes it easier as well for suppliers to come in and see everything that they've done and all the information that they provided. And this here can be done, so multiple users from that supplier can access this portal. The suppliers themselves can help manage all those different users so that you can have a few admins from the suppliers that can help add and remove users. And they can self-manage and reduce the need for your own company to have to manage all those supplier contacts and manage all the information, especially for larger suppliers, they can do all of that on their own. As well as the suppliers can also have the ability to submit requests, so they can, if they have questions about like an invoice or onboarding or any other items that they may need, those suppliers, they can submit questions, and that will create a procurement case that will go back to your procurement team to review, and they can provide an update to the suppliers. So now I'll just go back here to the procurement team view here. So I'm back, logged in back as Warren, who's the procurement buyer. And once the supplier gets onboarded and gets that whole validation gets completed, you can start completing processing this sourcing request, right? So here there are a few options that you can do. I can start a negotiation event to have a new quote. Once that qualification is complete, I can add like do some of the pricing and create a purchase order that gets connected to your ERP system, as well as the sort of negotiation event that for quoting or any other contracts or other items that you need to work on with this supplier. So here I had initiated this event here. You can restrict when those negotiations start. Like I wouldn't be able to start one of those before the supplier was fully onboarded and qualified. As well as here I can start like contract negotiations requests as well. So here, again, similar to how we did the sourcing and onboarding, you can have different playbooks that guide you on the step-by-step guide on how those contracts are processed. And I can start those requests. So here, if I need to request, for example, a new NDA document from the supplier, I can initiate the request for that new NDA here. So I can select the supplier, define like what type of paper I need this contract in, the type of agreement. So you can have multiple different templates for different agreements, and also like type of signature that I want to request, right? So we can integrate with things like DocuSign and have wet signature or e-sign. And once I initiate this request, it's going to trigger that contract process and how the contracts get processed. So Ben is going to walk you through that contract review and processing, and show you how our contract management tool can help create those templates and build those completed documents.
Awesome. Thanks, Eduardo. Hey, everybody. My name is Ben. I am a product manager here at ServiceNow, mainly responsible for our Contract Management Pro solution, which Contract Management Pro in of itself is a CLM tool. What Eduardo walked through with the sourcing and procurement tool interfaces with Contract Management Pro. And at the point where he was ready to say, okay, we want to get a non-disclosure agreement set up with this sourcing operation that we're doing, that's where we reach out to CM Pro and we can kick off a contract management process. So let me go ahead and I will share my screen. Give me one moment. All right. And so what we see here is this is the first landing page of where a user is going to come in. And if we come to workspaces, we're going to see that this user has the contract workspace UI enabled to them. Now, the one that Eduardo went ahead and triggered out was this CMR record 1005. So as a contracting professional, when I come to my contracts workspace, I can see all of the different contracting requests that are associated with my name that I need to take action on. This UI is configurable, so you'll be able to display information in different formats. As you see at the top here, we have some donut charts, some bar charts, some numbers. You can click on them and you can drill further into them. And that is configurable on a per user basis. So each individual user will have the capability to set this up as they see most fit. What we can do now, though, is I have a number of contracts that are requiring my attention, but we'll go to the one that Eduardo went ahead and set off. So if I click to open up number 1005, we can get some quick information, first of all, about what's going on here. So this is a non-disclosure agreement for this contract request. It's part of this negotiation event, which is then further tied to the sourcing request, so we can see where this came from. We can see if there are any approvers or reviewers associated with it. What you'll notice is there are none here by default, but what you'll have the ability to do is, as part of the workflow process, if you wanted to add a reviewer or an approver, and the difference here being an approver is just someone who's going to get a task in Employee Center to approve or reject an agreement, where a reviewer is someone maybe you want to take further action on it, maybe make changes to that agreement. If you wanted to add either of those parties to the contracting process, you'd be able to do so both on an ad hoc basis. Notice I can click here to create a new task, or I can initiate an approval. So as the administrator here, I can say, you know what, I'm not really sure about this. I want someone from finance to take a look at it. I can always click on initiate approver and do these at any time. I can also do them in an automated fashion as part of the workflow, and that can be conditional. For example, if it's a sourcing request that's over $1 million, I need it to go to finance. And we can build that in as part of the workflow to ensure that your processes are being followed every time. That way we were sure that any of these agreements that are going out are going to remain in compliance. While the example I'm doing right now is just an NDA, and that might not be as relevant. If you think about it, maybe some of the more complex purchasing agreements that you might have that are for large dollar values are going to have a little bit more of a complex flow than an NDA. And you can be confident that ServiceNow's workflow capabilities can meet those needs. If we come over to the contract documents tab, that's where we're going to see our non-disclosure agreement that was generated here. So as the contracting professional, I can go ahead and we can download this agreement. And we can just open this up because I want to take a look at it, and I just want to show you guys what we went ahead and generated. So what we did is we generated this non-disclosure agreement, and we can see all the different terms in it and different pieces of information. So we have the capability to go ahead and generate an agreement, and we can merge data into this agreement from that parent sourcing record. So that way this agreement is set up and looks like it was generated for this specific instance. But what I want to do now is as the contracting professional, I understand that maybe our external party will actually want to go ahead and take a look at this agreement or maybe get some info and maybe make some red lines or changes to it. So what we have the ability to do in this tool is go ahead and you can see I can click on this compose email button and I can select the document that I want to send out and I want to send it to our external party. So I can go ahead and select our external party's email address. And I can go ahead, take a look at this document. And I can click send email. If I needed to make changes to this, I can always create a revision of it. So had I have thought maybe this first version of the document was no good and I wanted to add additional details or clarifications to it, I could do so. If I wanted to reach back out to whoever initiated that sourcing request, I can do so also. But as part of this contracting process, what I've decided to do here is go ahead and just send this out to our external party to allow them to go ahead and make changes. So I'm going to change personas now, and we're going to come into our external party's inbox over here. And in a moment, we should see an email come through where those changes are requested. It generally takes around 30 to 60 seconds for that email to come through for those requested changes. So we'll go ahead and give that a moment. But what we're going to see here is that email is going to be sent as an attachment, and we're going to be able to go ahead and download that document right here in Microsoft Word, go ahead and make changes to it, and then send it back. Let's go ahead and see if that came through just yet. Give it another moment. You see, it should show up also in our activity stream here. In a moment, we'll see that the email messaging will come through over here. Apologies that it's taking a little bit of time right now, but it should pop up any moment, and we'll go ahead and see that that external party email address will show up for their review. While that goes through, are there any questions in the chat or any questions about any of the contracting process that I've shown so far?
Ben, this is Kevin. There's one question from Martin. He's asking about the Now Assist component on the last screen. Can you just articulate that capability?
Yes, I can. So what you see here is the Analyze Contracts with Now Assist. So within CM Pro, we do have two different AI offerings that are live right now with additional ones to come in the near future. But the first two that are live right now are Analyzing with Now Assist. And what that does is it generally helps out with contracts that are going to be from a third party, where if you're taking a contract in on someone else's paper, or if you have a heavily negotiated agreement where the external party maybe made a ton of changes to it. And what it'll do is it'll run an AI model against the agreement, and it'll spit out what it thinks are standard or non-standard terms. So it'll say, hey, this term in this agreement, while a force majeure clause might be present, it doesn't address a pandemic, which is something that our business likes to address in this contract type. So that's the first thing it does, is it'll tell you, okay, is the term present? And if it is present, is this in line with what we would normally agree to? And then the other thing that it will do is it will identify if a clause is just flat out missing. For example, maybe a term clause is missing, or maybe an audit clause is missing. And it will be able to go in and say, okay, this clause is not present. And then you can actually rectify that with the clause library where you can easily insert that clause into the agreement and go ahead and make sure that all of those needs are addressed, or you can click to ignore them. The other thing that you can do with Now Assist and CM Pro is metadata extraction. So what you'll have the ability to do is if you have one of those third-party agreements or a heavily negotiated agreement, you can go ahead and do a metadata extraction where it'll be able to automatically pull out those fields from an agreement and say, okay, we think that this is representing the start date. We think that this is representing the term of the agreement. We think that this is a force majeure clause. So all of that would be present in the agreement, and you'd be able to go ahead and sit through and populate those automatically with a quick review. So the real spirit of these two features is just to save contracting professionals time when analyzing agreements and not have to go through and read agreements line by line. It looks like, I don't know why it's not sending, but in the event that that happened, I did have a one that I went through just before we started here. So in the spirit of not holding us up, I will showcase what it looks like. So when the email gets sent, they should see this email come through. Hey, can you go ahead and take a look at this? And then what the external party can do is they can go ahead and make changes to an agreement. And what it would look like is they would respond back to the email that they receive. And again, I'm sorry for some slowness in this demo environment. But what they could reply with is an agreement that they went ahead and made changes to, which we see here. So as we take a look at this document where those changes were made, what we can see is they went ahead and deleted an entire section over here. So that's something we maybe want to bring our attention to. And then as you're negotiating in Microsoft Word as a contracting professional, you can leverage the already great track changes functionality. And we can say, you know what, we're not okay with the change they made to section 5. We're not going to agree to that. So as I reject that change, we can see that now that clause that was previously deleted, which is this title clause, has automatically been re-added to the agreement. And then section 8, you can see that they added this piece here where I can cancel at any time I want. Obviously, also not something that we're going to be okay with. So if I wanted to go ahead and reject that change, I can reject that change also. And then I'm done reviewing this document. Those were just 2 quick changes they made. But then what you'll do as the contracting professional is you'll save that and you'll come into the contracts documents tab. And then you can go ahead and you can upload that changed document. So the one that we just went ahead and made those changes to as our new version. So in order to do that, refresh. This one was in signed status, so that it won't allow me to add a new one. But let's say I wanted to do it here in the one that we were working with just a moment ago. If I come to contract documents, I can go ahead and click on create revision, and I can select from my computer. Let me just make sure I save this one properly. Edits. And I can even add a note that says with edits here. And then now we've moved from version 1 to version 2, and I can add note exactly what's changed between those 2 versions. So I know that I made those changes with edits. Once I've gone through this negotiation process back and forth a couple times, and I'm happy with the document I have, I can elect to go ahead and send this out for signature. As Eduardo alluded to, we do have pre-built integrations with both DocuSign and Adobe Sign. In the spirit of saving time here, rather than going through those signing sessions, I'm just going to go ahead and upload an already signed copy I have to keep this moving here, which is this document right here. And then once I click on upload, this document process will move from awaiting signature and in process to close complete and contract signed. And what we'll see is a new contract repository record is created here. So this is going to be a link to the signed agreement where it lives within our repository. That repository is going to be searchable. There'll be metadata around it. You can run reporting and analytics off of it. And that way, as you need contracts, you'll be able to quickly access them as at a moment's notice when you want to pick them up. As well as this contracting process would be visible back on that sourcing request that we were working on before. So we would see that now this is in completed status, and you can proceed with any of the other sourcing items that need to be completed. That was all I had planned to go over for CM Pro. I did want to pass it back over to Mark. I want to make sure that we have time for ample Q&A about all of the different processes we saw today, but yeah, thank you all very much. And if there are any other questions on CM Pro, I would be happy to address them.
Awesome. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, Ben, for that walkthrough of our solutions. Hopefully, everyone's seen here now firsthand how having everything in one platform that's connected and tied to all the underlying systems of record where the ultimate transactional data lives provides a better experience for those folks managing these types of processes. And again, gives them one single front door to operate with and against their teams and external third parties, making things a lot easier, making them more more visible, and then ultimately allowing us to collaborate more effectively without those manual sort of phone call, email, spreadsheet type of interactions. Okay. And so, just recapping on what we saw, right? Sourcing and procurement operations, allowing the discovery and the autonomy of our operations within those different functions around sourcing and procurement to be able to be sit on top and provide a better experience from your traditional types of procurement systems, Rebecca, like your Coupas, your Arebas, et cetera. Supplier lifecycle operations allows us to streamline that onboarding process and reduce those cycle times for managing our suppliers to up-level that relationship and provide a better way of doing business with these third parties that provides transparency and value in both and for both. And then lastly, you saw the ability to manage invoicing and really connect the dots with a three-way match across all of that source to pay process, really all in one place. And then lastly, that contract management piece that's also critical to ensure that all the necessary moving parts that are traditionally all in separate systems are all collapsing into one workflow or multiple workflows that support the overall the business operations where procurement lives. Now, a bit of a peek behind the curtain, right? We've been talking about AI, and what I've noticed about AI is AI doesn't require things like a user interface, right? AI is not that. It's not a person, right? We as people need buttons and things to type into, but AI doesn't, right? So a little bit of peek behind the curtain, right? Where is this data even coming from? Well, it's coming from your underlying systems, right? But ultimately, what we're allowing for you to do is leverage solutions like Workflow Data Fabric, like you're seeing here, which is our next generation solution that fundamentally transforms how you connect and act on the data you currently have. It's not just another integration tool, right? This is about creating data foundation for true business transformation, where every data point becomes an opportunity for automation, every connection becomes a pathway for intelligent workflows, and every real-time insight can trigger immediate responses with our AI agents, right? So we spoke a little bit about agentic AI and AI agents throughout the presentation, and I want to go ahead and just first off demystify exactly what it is we're talking about when we do speak to something that, again, is pretty bleeding edge and folks have a general curiosity around. It all starts with a use case, right? In this case, we've been talking about source to pay. So whatever type a part of the process that you're looking to improve upon, right? This is where we ultimately take that use case, that problem that we want to solve or that goal we're marching toward, and align it to a trigger so that we know when to actually kick this process off. What this does is it allows our AI agent orchestrator to respond or prompt for that trigger so that we are constantly monitoring without having a person doing that. This allows for us to start to plan, right, through our orchestrator without having to be involved at all, right? Unless it's a supervised action. This is where the orchestrator ultimately aligns to various workers or AI agents that have very unique tasks that they're able to accomplish with a very limited set of skills that they're able to utilize. This prevents those AI agents from running off and running amok across the organization and really focuses them on the things that they are meant to do without the bandwidth to do others and go outside of the scope of the use case. That ultimately the skills that these particular agents utilize are workflows or scripts, can utilize knowledge articles or integrations in order to do what they need to do in order to ultimately complete the task they've been assigned by that orchestrator and keep that plan rolling forward. So let's take a look at an example of what this might look like. Right, first, we're talking about conversational intake, right? So this is where we leverage things like generative AI as well as other types of AI to ultimately orchestrate this intake process. So first, conversing with the employee. This is the agent that's talking to our employee and figuring out what they want. The data preparer takes all that exchange and allows for things that are already documenting the process, such as knowledge articles, to be freely available to the requester. Additionally, what we're able to do is activate a communicator agent, which converses with the employee based on the agent's output and based on what the data preparer has provided for us. Now, a recommendation agent can come into play, and ultimately knowing our organizational policy, the things that we've documented and provided for this agent as a skill, they can go ahead and start to think about the different trends and recommend the various suppliers and products based on the requests that our requester is making. Our catalog agent then goes and finds that thing they need and then guides our employee through that checkout process, and then ultimately finds the record producers in a service catalog and guides the employee through the ultimate process of raising or closing that case. Right. So it's all about intake. It's all about making it easy. It's all about making it just a conversation, right? Versus something that's very rigid and this also allows for some bandwidth to go off topic. Now, excuse me. The second example I have here is around spend categorization, and I think this is pretty cool as well, right? The ability for that AI agent orchestrator to help us really wrap its arms around a very difficult process that most procurement organizations struggle with is really where the magic happens for me, right? So it allows us to have a data reviewer to go and find that data and figure out who is purchasing what, how much are they purchasing, all that good stuff, right? And then our spend categorizer can go ahead and start to begin the categorization process and work with that data reviewer to ensure that these things are consistent. The product categorizer is going to go ahead and start to assign products to categories based on all this information that's been discovered by that data reviewer. The category auditor is going to say, hey, this is wrong. I need a human to look at. The category governor is going to go ahead and start to think about what has happened thus far and make sure that we're applying rules in order to improve accuracy. And then lastly, we want to make sure that data sync agent is doing its job to ensure that wherever we're pulling this data from, wherever it's changing, it is synchronized to all the underlying systems as well as within ServiceNow, all for the purpose of being able to seamlessly and in an automated way start to categorize our spend without all that stuff that can ultimately take our data and make it start to look bad, or even take poor data and improve the data accuracy. So what you've hopefully seen today is with out-of-the-box capabilities that are configured and purpose-built with AI as the underpinning capability beyond the solution. We are purpose-built for aerospace and defense. We are built for scale. We work in any geography, and org structure and complexity are all mapped directly into our solutions with an industry understanding of how these things work and what your critical business processes are. Now, don't believe me, right? Ultimately, the value can be seen in the different customers that we have ultimately really seen as first movers in using a lot of this advanced capability. A lot of times we don't want to jump all the way in the pool because we're afraid we might get hit by some sharks. Sharks don't live in pools, and they don't live in here either. So things like reduction in escalations, things like a reduction in resolution time, a reduction in hours that agents spent and minutes per task, right? These are hard dollar savings that ultimately translate into business value that ultimately allow you to then justify solutions that you have and be able to mature beyond the scope that you're already considering. Other customers that we've seen also do this, especially within the aerospace and defense sectors, right, are seen here as an example, right? We have a particular customer today who had some real problems, especially managing things like their compliance and their assessments and performance against tracking corrective actions. And so at the end of the day, what they really wanted to do is reduce the costs in labor that is used to maintain all these homegrown solutions that they've had to build and manage and maintain throughout their life cycle. They wanted to make sure they were compliant. That's number one thing really for most of our friends that are in aerospace and defense that work with the federal government. There's no shortcuts to this, right? There's no magic bullet, but our solution can ensure that we are compliant fully and that we don't have to worry about that type of risk that comes from being non-compliant. And then lastly, we have the ability to then start to mock our solution against supplier performance. So understanding just how our suppliers are doing, what data we're capturing from them, what their rate of return on this information is when we do send those assessments, all critical in order to make sure that we are minimizing risk when dealing with these third parties that don't live within our four walls. And the last example I'll show here is a large software company, right? They don't manufacture anything, right? They make software, but ultimately they had a problem that I think we can all sort of understand, is that maverick spend can get the best of us if we don't put a cap and control on it. And ultimately making sure that we engage with our suppliers to ensure that we have the right contracts in place, that we have them onboarded and in network, can also help reduce the amount of maverick spend that occurs outside of our procurement systems. The reason why maverick spend occurs is because the procurement process is so darn complicated and no one wants to work within it, right? But as you've seen today, even if it's complicated, we have the ability to allow software solutions, AI, and workflows to help make things simpler, to make the experience better, and to make it faster. So that ultimately allows customers like this to see a 75% improvement in spend under management. Okay. So with that, and as we roll into this final minute of this presentation, I just want to go ahead and express my thanks to everyone that's joined us today. And I know we don't have much bandwidth for questions, as the time on us has run out. But you know how to get a hold of us, either through Kevin Adler or myself. And again, we will be in Knowledge in Vegas here in the coming weeks. So please come and join us and help us understand what it is you need and how we can best serve you. Register using these links and ultimately gain access to all the goodness that comes with going to Vegas and the fun that we have there. And of course, if you're going to the Gartner Supply Chain Symposium as well, come join me. I will be there. I will be talking about agentic AI and supply chain with ServiceNow in a much deeper level. And of course, diving into it with our industry partners and experts there that will be joining us. So with that, thank you so much for attending today. And we really appreciate the time you've spent, because we know time is of the importance and value.
Thank you all very much. Have a good afternoon.